Welcome, everybody. We're delighted to be hosting this webinar today, focusing on careers in cybersecurity. My name is Patrick Almer. I'm the founder and director of Learning People. I should just make the point that we're recording this webinar, so please let us know if you prefer that not to be the case. So careers in cybersecurity, and it is an incredibly large topic to discuss, and we're trying to get it into within 45 minutes, but and I'll run through how we're going to do that hopefully in the next minute or so, and then I'll let you go across to our speakers today. So just a brief overview for those who don't know about Learning People. We're established in 2010, so we've been now in business for the last 10 years. We have over 25,000 students across the globe, with offices in Ireland, the UK, New Zealand, and Australia. Our big focus is on helping people learn the most in-demand skills for tech and dev and project management. We're really focused on getting those skills which lead to the best outcomes. And for us, when we say outcomes, typically it's all around jobs and job outcomes and enabling people to lead really fulfilling careers. That's a big part of why we set the business up in the very beginning, and it remains very much the core of what we do to this day. Of course, when we look across the tech and dev sector, there is no one vertical where we see more opportunity than cybersecurity. And you don't need me to tell you of all the opportunities that exist around that vertical, but certainly job growth was exploding pre-COVID, and even since COVID's been part of our landscape, we still see more jobs being advertised than there are skilled professionals to take advantage of those opportunities. Of course, when you've got that kind of demand, typically the rewards are greater and the opportunities are greater because employers are really struggling to find the right talent. And I know James will talk more about that, I'm sure. But you know, one of the really pleasing things I think for me personally, for all those people that work at our organisation, is that the opportunity is open to a much broader sector of people than perhaps it once was. Cybersecurity is an industry where you can get into without necessarily having gone to university, although that is a very valid and great route to take. But there are other great routes to take as well. And our learning programs, of course, are specifically designed around enabling people to get into those jobs within cybersecurity. And to that end, we work very closely with our friends from CompTIA. CompTIA have the world's leading programs, certification programs for people looking to get into particular areas within tech and dev. We've got today, I'm delighted to have two really important people on the call. First and foremost, a former student of ours, Craig Evans. Craig is going to talk through his journey into a career into his career in cybersecurity. And you know, I said this to Craig just a minute ago. We're so delighted to have him part of this because really we exist for people like Craig and yourselves to really try to enable this route into career route into cybersecurity. And of course, we're also very delighted to have the Chief Technology Evangelist, James Stanger from CompTIA. I have known James for a number of years, and I have no pressure here, James, but unquestionably one of the most engaging presenters I've met. Sorry, James, I'm setting you up for a fall. But James is really going to talk through cybersecurity careers in 2020, and from the CompTIA viewpoint, so not coming from Learning People, the CompTIA viewpoints, how he sees it playing out. So that's probably enough from me. Thanks again, guys, for joining, and I guess it's over to you, James.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it, Patrick. It's been a while since we've seen each other face to face, certainly due to this COVID thing, but it was great to connect with you again. Craig, how are you doing?
I'm very good, James. Thank you.
It's good
Very good, thank you.
Good to have you here. You know, I think Patrick was absolutely correct to say Craig is the number one guest and the most important person. It is, because it's all about the students, right? And it's all about how you're learning cybersecurity and down or up a cybersecurity pathway. So folks, what we're going to do is Craig and I are going to be talking about how he got into cybersecurity. First, I'm going to do a little bit of background about cybersecurity careers in 2020 and ahead of 2021, etc. I just wanted to say, so Craig, you're calling in from, is it the, sorry, I wanted to say Brighton, the Bristol area. Is that about right?
Yeah. I'm just north of Bristol in a little unknown area called Yate. It's near Chipping Sodbury. So
Chipping Sodbury, and you are in Brunel country, Isambard Kingdom, Brunel country. Is that correct?
Very, very true. Yeah, there are there's lots of evidence of his existence in and around us. Absolutely, you know, kind of a large, fantastic train stations, the very famous Clifton Suspension Bridge.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's plenty of evidence of Brunel around here.
I've been a huge fan of Brunel, and the way I learned about Brunel, just, you know, kind of the American over in the wrong part of the world. I learned about it through his ships that he built, the Great Western, the Great Britain, and then of course the Great Eastern, which in many ways gave us time itself. You guys don't know about it. I'll call it the HMS Great Eastern. It was the biggest ship for 50 years or something. And it helped lay the first international telegraph line. Which really kind of helped standardize time after the railroads, which he also invented. So
yeah, we've got we've got one of his ships. It's been restored and it permanently sits in Bristol Dock. Right. I think if I'm right, I think that's the Great Britain. And it's a huge tourist attraction for the UK, and they do all sorts of events for Christmas and things. Not that I work for them and I'm selling them, of course, but it's absolutely fascinating.
Well, because Brunel was an innovator, and today we're going to be talking about securing today's tech innovation. So let me talk for a few seconds, Craig, about a couple of trends that we've seen. But I want you, anytime you feel like interjecting something, because you have a fascinating history. Your work, you started with Krispy Kreme many years ago, did a lot of travel there, and you moved over to cybersecurity. And how long ago was it that you went over into cybersecurity?
I started my first role. I am now officially 4 weeks in. So 4 weeks in, yeah, relatively new, but it's been fantastic.
That means you're a grizzled veteran, Craig. So folks, so let me do this presentation real quick. For the first half, I'll talk about a few things, a few trends that we're seeing at CompTIA relevant to the UK and the world. And this little screenshot that you're seeing is a place, I think Jono saw this. This is a place in the UK in the Lake District. Craig, you've been to the Lake District before?
No, unfortunately not. Spent quite a lot of time in my hometown, my home area, South Wales, where there's some great countryside, but not Lake District, unfortunately.
Now, when you say the South Wales, you're talking about the Brecon Beacons area? Is that?
I am, yeah.
I was able to spend some time there about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. It was just absolutely gorgeous. It was flooding there a bit, so nobody got hurt or anything. But boy, it was absolutely fascinating. All right, this is Striding Edge, and Striding Edge is an interesting little place. It's up in the Lake District. There's a point where it's about 3 feet wide, goes on for, I don't know, many hundreds of yards. And if you fall on one side, I think it's about a 200 or 300 foot fall. On the other side, it's about a 400 or 500 foot fall. I think in 2015 there were many fatalities. I was just before I went up this. My wife pointed out how many fatalities were on this, people falling and other things like that. And I read what it was all about. I said, "Oh, don't worry about that, honey. Those are all just, most of these people were in their 50s and they were just older guys trying to relive their glory days." And my wife said, she didn't say that. She actually didn't say it. That's the embellishment. But I did walk along Striding Edge. And I remember I could hear people shouting behind me as I was walking it. And I thought, and I kind of turned around to say, "Hey, I'm going as fast as I can." And they were shouting, saying, "Get off of there. You're crazy going on there." The reason I bring this up, folks, is that cybersecurity pathways are something that are very important and are something that we know about at CompTIA. And so as you go down your cybersecurity pathway, like Craig has, we've kind of got your back at CompTIA, and certainly with the Learning People, a fantastic organization. When I was lucky enough to go to Brighton to meet Patrick for the first time, and his people in his organization, it was just really, really exciting to learn about what they did. I'm James. That's me on top of a Monroe up in Scotland. The first Monroe I ever walked up. It was fantastic. I've done a lot of work in workforce development, in cybersecurity. I've done threat hunting before. So I've been able to actually implement some of the cybersecurity things that you're going to be hearing about today. But I've also been able to work with people in certifications and training. At CompTIA, we're a trade industry association. We listen very carefully to what the industry wants. That's why we created A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, the cybersecurity pathway. I'm big on pathways. We listen very closely to what's going on in the UK, worldwide, whether it be the UK, India, Africa, the United States, South America. We listen closely to what's going on, and we keep an eye on those trends. Today, folks, I want to talk about Craig's career, his cybersecurity career that he jumped into, some of the problems that we're seeing, some of the solutions. So for the next few minutes, I want to talk to you about a place called Ben Arthur, or Arthur's Seat. Just kidding. That is actually up in Erricker, Scotland. That is known as the Cobbler. I was able to walk up that. I love being in the UK and seeing the beautiful things it has to offer. You have to offer. But that is a cobbler because it's supposed to look like somebody making shoes back in the day. You know, it was named hundreds of years ago, or a couple, whatever, 200-300 years ago. To me, that looks either like something out of the Lord of the Rings, you know, some sort of, you know, like the Nazgul or something, or it looks like a hacker to me, right? They got the hoodie, right? The whole 9 yards, right? So Craig, is your job, and tell everybody, Craig, real quick before I go into careers here, about what your particular job role is right now that you got 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, so I currently work as a SOC analyst, so Security Operations Center analyst. And my job basically is to monitor network traffic, respond to any alerts that may arise from you know, potential breaches, and just kind of investigate and just see if there's anything to worry about. And if there is, then, you know, remediation and notifying clients. And there are other few things I've started picking up as well, network related, which has been fantastic. But yeah, that's the in a nutshell what I do.
So, and by clients, you have people, companies, right, that you service, as it were. You're a service, a security service provider. And so he basically looks at the log files and tries to interpret events and things like that to say, oh, that's just normal traffic, or, oh, there's a bad guy doing bad things. So in a sense, Craig, that's you there overlooking your computer and making sure things are looking good. What Craig does is he makes sure that today's computer environments, networking environments are secure. Really, what he's doing is making businesses confident in moving forward. I want to bring up a fancy phrase. It's called ambient computing. There's a phrase. You can even Google it if you don't know what I'm talking about. And here's my attempt to describe that. Ambient computing means that as the smart watches that we have generates data, as the wearables that we have generate data, our mobile phones and things like that, they basically allow artificial intelligence to computers, computer networks, et cetera, to box you, as it were. See those boxes around those people and identify their location, identify what they're doing, and they can take that information, learn about you, and the information that is generated as you go from environment to environment follows you around. This is ambient computing. And it's part of another fancy little phrase called the fourth industrial revolution. Let's talk about something that's pre-industrial revolution. That's a stone circle. It's been fun and interesting over the years to go visit stone circles. I mean, we all know about Stonehenge or stone circles you see in Scotland. Nobody quite knows why they're there and things like that, the religious reasons, et cetera. But one of the theories, it has to do with these circles were built for commerce. Did you know that? That actually were places where villages or people could get together for religious reasons. Yes, maybe they were for burials, some of them, but many times for people to get together for commerce. Well, we're living in a post kind of a post-information age world in many ways. We've moved on for many years, but our job as cybersecurity professionals is to secure how people do business. So there's this first industrial revolution that's way beyond stone circles, right? We're talking a couple 100, 300 years ago. They discovered power, right? Steam, water power, mechanization. The second industrial revolution was mass production, assembly lines. They used electricity. The third industrial revolution we've been living in, right? Information age, space age, automation. Well, the fourth industrial revolution, whether it's a brand new revolution or just an extension of the third industrial revolution, is basically where we are making hyper-connected systems that are very intelligent. And so you're combining AI, cyber physical systems, whether that be the physical systems like our phones or the operational technologies such as wind turbine generators, the smart city infrastructures. And it's all about making sure that individuals are using today's modern technology and securing it. This here, I had to throw a picture of my dad in here. This is my dad, and he's standing in front of 3 devices that are called a dictaphone. And the reason I bring this up, the dictaphone, do you see that little horn there that's on your right hand side there? You speak into that. And then do you see the headphones in the middle one? That made it possible basically to capture voice for your secretary, as it were, or capture voice back from, I don't know, about the 1910s, 1920s, and they used that all the way through the 1950s. Of course, nowadays we capture that in our phones much more efficiently. Reason I'm bringing this up, I'm talking about the different technologies that we've seen advancing from stone circles to the technology of this thing called the dictaphone, all the way through to modern technologies. Now, cybersecurity is very important to this, and I thought I'd show some statistics that we've gathered at CompTIA recently. There are about 5 top industries. It's not the only 5. But 5 top industries that seem to be doing a lot of IT job postings in the UK. Information and communication, which I think Craig would probably fit in with with your company a bit, right? Because you're basically offering services to secure information and communication. A lot of professional, scientific, and technical organizations associated with government, for example, manufacturers, financial and insurance, they're all hiring, okay? They, as Patrick mentioned just earlier at the beginning of the presentation, they are all, in fact, looking for talented people inside and outside of security. We've noticed in our research that there are 4 pillars of information technology. There's infrastructure, which means the cloud, data centers, making services happen. Okay, making sure that you get your email, that your IM's working, that your social media is working, that databases are happening, stuff like that. Development, meaning programming. Third, cybersecurity, and then data, understanding how to process and manage data. These are the 5 pillars that really support the pillars of our society. So when Craig is talking about monitoring traffic, he's talking about really making it possible for modern organizations to stay secure, but more importantly, that your identity, our very identity, and the very pillars of our society, identity, healthcare, voting, all those things remain secure. I thought I would show some things of major city areas that we're seeing pretty serious demand. For example, London, Cambridge, Belfast, Edinburgh. All of these areas we're seeing that the size of the workforce continues to grow year after year. Now, obviously with COVID, there have been serious bumps, and some people have lost their jobs and things like that, but more importantly, they've gotten them back. In other words, they were able to move on to another gig. So there's been serious volatility, but don't worry about that as much because it's been one of the more resilient professions. So a couple of areas that we've noticed that when it comes to cybersecurity professionals, we need people who know how to troubleshoot cybersecurity and the specific areas that businesses are looking for. Notice number 4 is cybersecurity, but cybersecurity is included in all 5 of these areas. We need, take a look at the 5th area, software development. We need people who understand how to secure code and make sure it's developed properly. We need consultants that as they go out and say, here's a business solution, that they can turn to Craig and say, Craig, is this going to work? Is there a cybersecurity issue? So we need people to overcome the various issues when it comes to implementing today's technology that make the fourth industrial revolution possible. And so we need people to understand budgeting and risk and how that works. And you'll see from Craig that he does a lot of work in this area, because increasingly IT is a strategic function. It's very important to understand. And we help with security overcoming various business barriers, where we say, look, yes, you may think you don't have a business case, or the customers can be confused, or it's risky. Cybersecurity professionals such as Craig make it possible to say, yeah, it's risky, but here's how you can overcome that risk. COVID has been very disruptive, but we are seeing that there are many opportunities for cybersecurity professionals to offer important solutions, to work on complex projects, to map tech to business, to do data analytics, to overcome something called technical debt, which is basically where a company might make a bad decision to postpone a certain thing, but that comes back in bad ways, and that, including hackers and things like that. We find that when it comes to the cloud, we find that it's a very important tool. So as installed, it brings ready-made platforms and available software, but also it can be kind of a problem, okay? Like a volcano that's ready to go. That's Mount St. Helens, about an hour and a half away from where I live, something that could blow up on you. So we find that when it comes to cybersecurity, people like Craig are today's information custodians, okay? They are people who curate information and make sure that it stays private and secure. We're finding that people like Craig are working in an environment where not only do they work with IT providers, but they also help provide security and provide a governance and a risk management approach. We find that there are various job roles out there, such as pen testers and security analysts. Pen testers are the ones that go in and they're kind of do the offensive security side of things. Security analysts listen for those indicators of attack, and they listen for tactics, techniques, and procedures. And we'll learn more about that from Craig, who works at a security operations center. So I just wanted to talk very quickly about some of the trends that we have seen. We're seeing people working for security operations centers, which Craig in fact does. So Craig, let's learn more about what you have been doing. Now you used to work for Krispy Kreme, is that right?
Very correct, yeah. 10 years working for Krispy Kreme in the UK.
Now, why did you make that transition?
I think, I won't go back too far, but ultimately it was a career that I just kind of fell into when I left college. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I kind of started working full-time in a bar at the time. Then I moved on to management, and then I kind of got some opportunities in terms of managing sites in central London. And then I transitioned into retail. And every single day was about, where's my next pay rise? Where's my next opportunity? And actually, I was doing everything for the wrong reasons. And probably about 3 years ago, I decided that I no longer wanted to do that. I wanted to kind of get into something that really interested me, something I could get passionate about, somewhere I could carve out a successful career for myself. And this all coincided with my sons being born, and kind of my quality of life wasn't great in that respect. I was away sometimes months at a time opening sites across the UK and Ireland, and I just came to the conclusion I kind of wanted to take my career back a little bit and really kind of reinvent myself. And then that's when I kind of came across the Learning People and the courses they offered, and that was my first stepping stone. Really was making that decision.
So basically we've seen this before where a lot of people I think have felt, well, IT, isn't that where if you're an IT worker or a security worker, they stick you in a basement somewhere and never let you out, and the lifestyle's not so hot. But I mean, you chose this on purpose because it's not where they stick you in a basement necessarily, COVID aside, right?
Yeah.
Tell us, give me an idea a bit of kind of your day-to-day activities and things that you do working for the Security Operations Center and things like that.
Yeah, so yeah, as we've already covered, a lot of it is monitoring network traffic, looking at alerts, and then performing investigations based on those alerts. and obviously using the skills and knowledge that I picked up through the courses I've completed up to date. Utilizing various tools as well. There are lots of sites where you can go into where you can quite easily enter an IP address, and that will tell you its location and who it's registered to, and that helps you identify threats. Looking at quarantined files. So sometimes an end user will kind of download a suspicious file. The file will be quarantined. You then will go in and investigate that file to see if there's any malware or anything that could cause harm to either the end user host, the actual computer itself, or the network. So there's a lot of investigation and analytics to it, which is really interesting stuff. And then it's also managing your own systems as well. So kind of performing updates remotely to various endpoints and equipment and things like that. So it's quite varied. And it's all very, very interesting stuff. I've already come across some really interesting things.
So some of the things that you've come across include specific attack types and things, whether types of malware that bad guys are using and trying to get into, and they call it pivoting, I think, right, where the hackers basically, as they get to a certain point, they say, well, I can go this way or I can go this way, right? And your job is to identify those pivot points, right? And
absolutely, yeah. So all it takes is one area of entry, and then once somebody's into that network, they can pretty much touch any computer within that. So that initial entry point is really important to try and kind of keep them out from there. So my role is to stand there, identify that, and help defend.
CompTIA research, like a lot of other folks' research, shows that social engineering, right? Tricking people, right, is probably the #1 way in which people get in. Is that what you're finding as well? Somebody was tricked into clicking a link and all that.
Definitely. It's very, very much the entry point of choice as we're talking about it. All it takes is for somebody who will make a phone call into an employee who will say, I'm from the IT support desk. They don't check anything up. They get sent an email with a link into, I need to update your user login ID. Can you click on this file for me? And then all of a sudden, once you've clicked that file, it's pretty much game over. It's they'll have all the credentials or access they need in order to enter into that network. And sometimes, you might just be having a busy day at work. You might just be having a bad day. You might not be thinking quite as clearly as you probably should be. And you might be in the middle of a task. You might be particularly busy. And you kind of want to get off that phone to get on with your own work, and people manipulate those circumstances in order to, as I said, gain access to company information, personal information, whatever that may be. And that goes for, personally as well, through your own personal inbox. We all receive spam on a daily basis, which a lot of it we would refer to as phishing, where people are physically wanting you to click on a link or an attachment in order to gain access to your bank details or wherever that may be. So yeah.
A couple of things I want to point out here is most people, when they think of a security operations center, they think of that picture right there. People in some sort of sophisticated environment or in some sort of fancy thing like War Games. That's an old movie. I'm dating myself, but and all that. But Craig, folks, take a look at where Craig is. He's in a security operations center, right? I mean,
so show the camera around.
Yeah, show the camera around. Okay, there it is.
There's the TV. Yeah.
And the reason I want to point this out is that the Security Operations Center, folks, is really not necessarily this eye chart here that you're seeing, this thing where all these different elements are working together. The Security Operations Center is in Craig's head. Okay, I just want to me, that's the most important thing to understand. How did you get to where you were, right? Because you had a thriving career, you had, serious life experience, right? How did you get to understanding some of the things that you were just talking about, whether it be phishing or social engineering or pivot points and all that sort of thing? Tell us a bit more about the cybersecurity pathway that you took, as it were.
Yeah, so I'd say once I made the decision that cybersecurity was where I wanted to be, I progressed through some CompTIA qualifications to start with. So I did the A+, which is very much the kind of entry level kind of qualification that helps you understand how computers work in general, what software, so operating systems. We're all familiar with things like, Windows, for example, and it kind of touches in on some of the other operating systems that are out there, be it Mac or Linux. So that was my kind of starting point. I then moved on and went and did the CompTIA Network Plus, which is more about networks themselves. So how computers that you've already learned about, how they communicate, and what they use in order to do that. I then moved on to the Security Plus, which then was very, very much about the nitty-gritty, detailed security element, which is when I really started to get excited. And then part of my package was that then I moved on to the EC Council's Certified Ethical Hacker. The only way I could get onto that course was having completed the 3 prior, because there was an entry-level qualification for that. So then I worked through that as well, and that was my kind of course route. I did things outside of that as well. As I was learning through those things, I kind of personally find practical learning much easier. So, alongside the labs that I was able to do through CompTIA and the EC Council, where you get put into environments where you can test and work with equipment. There's some learning through that. I set up my own kind of virtual labs through a virtual machine as well, which was a bit of a learning curve. I kind of learned quite a lot through that as well. I'm
curious, what did you do? Did you use VMware, VirtualBox?
VirtualBox I used. Yeah,
I'm a VirtualBox guy myself too.
I think I did try VMware, but I found VirtualBox a lot user friendly and easier to operate, and I had less issues with it. So it worked really well for me. But other vendors are out there.
So let me stop right there, Craig. I think what Craig has really touched on here very nicely is the importance of hands-on practical learning. It's not knowledge-based, it's activity-based, right? When I say cybersecurity, it's all about getting hands-on with this. And one day Craig's going to move on into management and things like that, or maybe you'll stay advanced, tech. You have choices to make, kind of like as you're hiking along Striding Edge or hiking along whatever pathway. But as you learn those things, what kind of sites and things did you go to or whatever? Like there's malwarebytes.com. You can Google that, where you can actually download packet captures and study them. Were there things like that helped you along the way?
Yeah, there were lots of avenues, lots of things I kind of, the amount of resource out there, you wouldn't believe, and a lot of it is actually free. So I utilized things like Try Hack Me, where they're instructional rooms basically that kind of take you through with a little bit of hand holding about how to use various systems, and it eventually moves into a lot of the offensive stuff as well. So I utilize that. There are lots of practice places you can go as well. So there's something called BWAP, which is learning how to you can access web applications and kind of break into those. So there was a bit of learning there. There are other easy, quick training platforms like through LinkedIn and Udemy and things like that. So if you had a specific thing you wanted to learn, so for me it was Kali Linux. I've never used Kali Linux before. So you very quick Google search, you can find resources out there. YouTube there's instructional videos, and you can very quickly build up a skill portfolio that allows you to kind of do the things that you're wanting to do. As long as you're brave with it and don't shy away from it and get hands-on, then you'll find you'll learn very quickly.
And the folks at the Learning People, they really emphasized certain skills, didn't they? I mean, they really focused on saying, look, here's how you can get really hands-on with this, right? They gave you courses and things like that. Yeah,
absolutely. So part of the course material was instructional videos. There were some labs involved as well, where, as I said, you kind of get to do the hands-on piece and kind of learn on the job, I guess, essentially. There are, kind of practice quizzes and things like that as well to test your knowledge, so you can identify where any gaps may be in your knowledge to allow you to kind of go away and learn those elements before you sit your certification. So that was all very helpful.
When you decided that, after you got certified, after you got the hands-on knowledge and things like that, what were some of the things that you did as you were looking for your job? How did you make that transition from, okay, I've been doing the Krispy Kreme thing for years. Then I upskilled myself, right, for cybersecurity. And then how did you make that transition when it came to looking for a job? Because all of those are difficult transitions, and you've negotiated them with aplomb very, very well.
Thank you. I think Once you gain the qualifications, that's in effect the key that opens the door for you. That's what allows you to have conversations with people. There is a lot of work involved in terms of kind of gaining that first role. But I think that applies to any industry, doesn't it? I think, for me, I utilize things like LinkedIn quite a lot. I made lots of connections within the cyber industry. There are a lot of people who are openly happy to help, offer advice, give you, tell you how they got into the industry, for example. I made direct contact with lots of cybersecurity companies or providers, be that as their sole purpose or people with cyber departments, whoever it may be. I found that the smaller startup kind of MSP companies, so the service providers, I found that I was able to have more conversations with those than I was able to with the kind of larger companies. Nice. And there was a benefit to that in that, my day-to-day role now is probably, I get the opportunity to be involved in a lot more things. So I get a much wider knowledge base, which is great. You do have to work hard at it. I think, I was under no illusion in regards to that. But the qualifications were what allowed me to open up the door and start having those conversations.
So the qualifications that you got through the learning people, whether it be CompTIA, like you mentioned, EC Council, others, that allowed you to do that. What were some of the things that were kind of daunting as you looked for a job? And was it the networking part, getting to know people? Was it reading the job ads? I call them job advertisements. What were some of the things that were daunting, and how did you overcome that? Yeah,
I think you start out with maybe a little, kind of a little bit disbelief that, you can enter this space because it's something that's quite alien to you. My advice there is just, be brave. Don't fear it. At the end of the day, that's what the qualifications are there for, to help you prepare. And just kind of trust that a little bit. And then once you kind of overcome that fear, once I kind of then got qualified and starting having conversations, I started to realize that actually I'd kind of, that I was probably a bit more savvy than I realized in terms of my knowledge. And then, there are obstacles out there. There'll be a lot of people who want to do the easy thing and hire somebody with 5 years experience on their CV. So you have to navigate that, but there are absolutely ways around that. And I think, they were the main challenges for me. I think.
It's always interesting to me to see when it comes to cybersecurity jobs, those advertisements will list everything. It's so intimidating. Absolutely. But because you and I were talking about it earlier, where you were basically, look, that's kind of they're looking for fit. They're looking for the right fit of a person, not necessarily that huge laundry list and things like that. Yeah. What are some of them?
I was going to say, I think as well is that I think, ultimately a job description is a want list. There'll be very few candidates out there who tick all 10 of those boxes, or however many they are displaying. So if you can confidently say to yourself that, I tick 7 out of 10 of those boxes. If you're confident with that, then absolutely go away and have a conversation with a hiring manager. Apply for that role because there are very few companies that will hire the perfect fit, because a lot of the time they don't exist. It's a wish list. So don't let that hold you off either.
Okay. We've got just a few minutes left. One of the things I wanted to bring up were some of the myths that we seem to have when in regards to cybersecurity or even IT jobs. When I say myths, things like, well, you can't get into cybersecurity unless you got into computers at the age of 3. Or, things like that. Or did you have some of those kinds of myths in your head that you have to overcome? And if so, what were some of them?
Yeah, completely. Because I think, when you imagine, particularly in cybersecurity, you imagine people who, as you said, they've probably been hacking systems themselves since they were 12 in their parents' basement or wherever it would be. And you perceive these people to be extremely highly skilled. Right. And you view it as something that you can't learn. You kind of think, well, I've just not done that. And that's not really the case. I think, there are lots of tools out there that aid you and help you as well as you go. I think, there are people with that kind of skill set. Absolutely. Of course there are. But that shouldn't stop you trying to enter cybersecurity, because there is definitely a demand and need at the moment. And if people will look just as much for commitment, determination, resilience, your personality traits, your soft skills. People will look for that just as much as they will I can break into CIA. There's more to it than that.
There's so many of these myths that are out there. Like you need a 4-year degree to even, begin to go this way. And that degree better be in some sort of math genius thing or maybe computer science. And we're discovering that's not necessarily the case, that we need people with previous life histories, such as you, Craig, right?
Yeah.
To make that transition over into IT, into cybersecurity, and that it's eminently possible. So,
I don't hold a degree. I don't have a degree. I left school at 16 and just kind of pursued a career. I didn't even go to university or college. And if I can do it, I'm sure others can.
And then there's people like me who are recovering from getting too many degrees. So there's other ways to look at it. I got a bunch of degrees in English literature, believe it or not. But I made that transition, 20, 30 years ago over into IT. So, well, it's been fantastic talking to you today, Craig, about your cybersecurity career pathway, right? About transition that you made in regards to IT. Now, let's see what kinds of questions, as people have those, as you go along. So if anybody has particular questions, I'm happy to answer them, or certainly Craig is interested in answering them. We've researched at CompTIA, for example, the state of cybersecurity in CompTIA, throughout the world. It's a link there. And this slide deck I've made available to the learning people, so you can feel free to download it. There's the CompTIA IT employment snapshot, and there's a few of the articles that I've written over the last, 18 months or so, things like that. That's me getting ready to go scuba diving up at Scapa Flow. Sorry, I love doing that stuff. So are you a scuba diver at all, Craig?
I'm not, unfortunately. I was not built for water, I don't think. I've never been much of a swimmer, let alone scuba diver, but I do like to try and keep active.
But I'll get over to the UK, and then you'll get certified, and we'll go diving or something like that.
Let's do it.
But Craig, thank you very much for the time that you made available there. There's Mr. Brunel's Bridge, right? I think so. Where you live, Craig. And that there is, what is that? That's Hadrian's Wall there in the UK. But thank you again, everybody, for learning about Craig Evans' pathway and his work in securing our futures, right? In securing what we're doing using ambient computing and our modern environment. And so with that, Craig, I'll thank you, and thanks folks
for having me.
People. And I'll turn the time, Patrick, I think back over to you.
Great. Thanks very much, James and Craig. That was fantastic. And massive congratulations to you, Craig, for that journey that you've made. And James, as I set out at the very beginning, always a very accomplished presenter, and today didn't disappoint at all. So thanks all. I know we are on time, so I'll finish now. So to all those participants today, we are willing and able and really wanting to have conversations about careers in cybersecurity. So please feel free to get in touch, whether it be through the website, the email address, or our phone number. It's a Brighton phone number, which is on the screen right now. So with that, thanks again, guys, and I wish you all a great rest of the day, and good night to you, James.
Take care, everyone. Thanks, man. Take care, everyone.
You guys.
Take care all.